The rain had started without warning, the kind that turns city lights into trembling reflections and makes even confident people feel small. She stood under the weak glow of a cafe sign, clutching her coat as if it were the only thing holding her together, already preparing herself to apologize for taking up space she believed she didn't deserve. Somewhere inside her chest, an old voice whispered that she was about to disappoint someone again, the way she always did. This was supposed to be a simple date, nothing dramatic, nothing life-changing, yet her heart felt like it was standing on the edge of a cliff. Before the story pulls you deeper, pause for just a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet power of human connection, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. It helps these stories reach hearts that are still waiting to heal. She had almost canceled 3 times. In fact, her finger had hovered over her phone screen earlier that evening, ready to send a message filled with excuses about work, traffic, or sudden exhaustion. The truth was harder to admit. She did not feel worthy of being chosen, not for a meal, not for attention, not for someone's time. Life had trained her to shrink herself, to apologize before she even made a mistake. Years of quiet disappointments, broken promises, and being told she was too much or not enough had carved that belief into her bones. Standing there in the rain, she felt exposed, like the world could see straight through her carefully practiced smile. She remembered the way her life had slowly narrowed over the years. Once she had dreams that felt bright and endless. She wanted to travel, to create, to feel proud when she looked in the mirror. But responsibilities came early, and sacrifices came without applause. She took care of people who never learned how to take care of her. She stayed in places where love felt conditional and kindness felt rare. Somewhere along the way, she learned to measure her worth by how little trouble she caused others. Dates became rare, not because she lacked opportunities, but because she lacked belief in herself. He arrived soaked from the rain, slightly out of breath, carrying that awkward energy of someone who didn't want to be late, but also didn't want to rush the moment. There was nothing extraordinary about his appearance at first glance, no dramatic entrance or movie-style perfection. Yet there was a calm steadiness about him, a presence that didn't demand attention, but quietly earned it. He noticed the way she stood, tense and guarded, as if ready to retreat at the smallest sign of disappointment. He noticed more than she realized, because he was the kind of person who paid attention to silences, not just words. Inside the cafe, the air was warm and smelled of coffee and rain-damp clothes. The world outside blurred into streaks of light as they found a small table near the window. She struggled to meet his eyes for long, afraid that if she did, he might see the exhaustion she carried so carefully. Her mind raced ahead, rehearsing apologies for things that hadn't happened yet. When the menu arrived, she chose the simplest option, as if choosing less would make her easier to accept. As the minutes passed, something unexpected happened. There was no pressure to impress, no silent evaluation hanging in the air. He spoke about ordinary things in a way that felt gentle, like he was inviting her into a space rather than testing her. He listened when she spoke, really listened, the way people do when they are not planning their next response. Still, the weight inside her chest refused to lift. It had been there too long, fed by years of believing she was fundamentally flawed.
Then it happened. The words slipped out of her before she could stop them, shaped by fear more than thought. She admitted, almost casually, that she didn't feel like she deserved a date like this, that she wasn't sure why he had chosen her at all. She expected the usual reactions: awkward reassurance, polite denial, or uncomfortable silence. She braced herself for the familiar sting of regret that followed vulnerability. What she received instead stopped her cold. He didn't rush to contradict her or dismiss her feelings. He didn't tell her she was wrong in a way that felt empty. Instead, he responded with a calm certainty that felt heavier than any compliment she had ever received. He told her, without drama, that deserving had nothing to do with it, that he hadn't chosen her because she was perfect, impressive, or easy to love. He chose her because he saw someone real, someone who carried depth and resilience, someone who showed up even when it scared her. He said that a date wasn't a reward you earned by being flawless, but an experience shared by two people willing to be present. The shock wasn't loud. It was quiet, settling deep into her chest like warmth spreading through cold hands. No one had ever spoken to her like that before, not with pity, not with flattery, but with respect. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen without being judged, acknowledged without being measured. The rest of the evening unfolded slowly, almost tenderly. They talked about failures without trying to make them sound noble. They spoke about fear without pretending it didn't exist. She found herself laughing, genuinely, surprised by the sound of it. With every passing minute, the invisible wall she carried began to crack. She realized how exhausting it had been to constantly defend her right to exist, even in her own mind. When they stepped back outside, the rain had softened into a mist. The city felt different, less hostile, as if someone had quietly adjusted the lighting on her life. They walked for a while, not rushing to end the night, letting the silence be comfortable instead of heavy. She noticed how her shoulders felt lighter, how her breath came easier. Nothing dramatic had changed in her circumstances, yet something fundamental had shifted inside her. That night, lying awake in her small apartment, she replayed his words over and over. She realized how deeply she had tied her worth to other people's approval, how often she had denied herself joy before anyone else could. It wasn't that his reply magically healed her wounds. It was that it challenged the story she had been telling herself for years. The story that said she had to earn kindness, that love was a prize for the lucky or the exceptional. Over the following weeks, they continued to see each other, not in grand gestures, but in simple, meaningful moments. Coffee after work, walks that turned into long conversations, shared silences that felt safe. He never tried to fix her, never treated her like a project. He respected her pace, understanding that healing wasn't linear. Sometimes she still pulled away, still felt the old urge to apologize for existing. And each time he met her where she was, reminding her through actions more than words that she was allowed to take up space. Slowly, she began to notice changes beyond their time together. She spoke up more at work. She stopped saying sorry for things that weren't her fault. She allowed herself small pleasures without guilt, like buying flowers for no reason or taking a day off just to rest. These weren't dramatic transformations, but they were real. They felt earned, not through suffering, but through self-acceptance.
There were setbacks, of course. Old fears don't disappear quietly. One evening, after a particularly hard day, she nearly convinced herself that he would eventually see her the way she saw herself, as someone unworthy of effort. She almost canceled their plans again, the old habit clawing its way back. But then she remembered that rainy night, the steadiness in his voice, the way he hadn't flinched when she revealed her insecurity. She chose, for once, not to listen to the voice that told her to hide. What made his reply that night so powerful wasn't just what he said, but what it represented. It was a refusal to participate in her self-rejection. He didn't place himself above her as someone granting value. He stood beside her, acknowledging her humanity without conditions. In doing so, he offered her something she had rarely given herself, permission to believe she mattered. Months later, she would look back on that first date as a quiet turning point,
not because it marked the beginning of a perfect relationship, but because it marked the moment she stopped measuring her worth by her wounds. She understood that being chosen didn't mean being flawless. It meant being real, present, and open, even when it hurt. If this story is resonating with you, take a moment to reflect on the way you speak to yourself. Think about how many times you've told yourself you didn't deserve kindness, love, or joy. Now, imagine what could change if someone, or even you yourself, gently challenged that belief. Just before we reach the end, I want to ask you something special. Please comment below with the words, "I am worthy," if you believe, even a little, that you deserve good things too. Your comment might be the reminder someone else scrolling through needs to see today. Near the end of their journey together, she finally found the courage to tell him what that night had meant to her. She explained how close she had been to canceling, how deeply rooted her sense of unworthiness had been. He listened the same way he always did, without interruption, without trying to rewrite her experience. When she finished, there was a quiet understanding between them, a shared recognition of how fragile and powerful moments can be. The truth was, his reply had shocked her, not because it was clever or dramatic, but because it was kind in a way she wasn't used to. It asked nothing of her except honesty. It didn't promise forever, but it offered presence. And sometimes that is more than enough to change a life. As the story comes to a close, remember this: you do not need to earn your right to be here. You do not need to justify your desire for connection. If this story touched your heart, if it stirred something inside you, please like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive, reaching people who are standing in the rain, wondering if they are enough. Because sometimes all it takes is one unexpected reply to remind someone that they are.